the hero's journey is so connected. I mean, it's been a huge part of humanity for a long time when it comes to storytelling, right? And now that we've become really aware of it, I mean, that's a huge part of cinematic storytelling, right? And even our favorite, like, it doesn't even have to be superheroes. This could be, Lord of the Rings or Star Wars or Star Trek, or and a lot of sci-fi movies. They really hone in on this hero's journey, and so
Yes.
it's a great way for us to connect. And oftentimes, we want to see the hero succeed, and we see that hero outside of ourselves, but oftentimes we don't think of ourselves as the hero. And so that's what I love, where you kind of created a bridge where there is a gap. And it's like, well, yeah, actually, I can be the hero to my own story, in that my inner champion, which I'm going to place outside of me, so that I can pull this in. I can really understand. I can really connect. But first, I have to kind of place it outside of me, just like I'm used to with Frodo or Luke Skywalker, or I mean, you name it, whoever. Maybe it's Spider Man, maybe it's Batman, and they fortunately have their people in the chair. Like Batman has Alfred, and usually a person in the chair might be someone who's close to them, who is holding their secret, and is there. Maybe they're very tech savvy, so they can walk them through, tell them where to go, what to do, remind them of the inner power that they have, give them that positive feedback, and just let them know, like, hey, you've got this, right?
Yes.
And so what we're building here is not just us being people in the chair for the individual, but we're actually creating a community in the chair.
Yes.
And that's a whole other level, because it's wonderful when you have one person there leading you on. But imagine having tens of people, hundreds of people, or even thousands of people, or gosh, even tens of thousands of people in the same community as your community in the chair. That's the exponential power that this has. And that's why I'm so excited about what we're putting together here.
In the typical hero or even superhero's journey, right? It always begins with the discovery of self. Even before you get that person in the chair or the community that rallies around you, like, look, the Justice League, they end up coming together, right? And they form this amazing community of cohort of superheroes, right? So they all end up being the person in the chair for each other at some point, or they support each other in their superhero skills, and they lift each other up and they push each other.
Mhm.
That's what this is about, as much as it is anything, but it always starts with the discovery of self. And that's what an origin story is. So when you asked, like, what is the origin story? I had to discover it in myself. Every person's going to have to discover it in themselves. And that's what this book can help you do as you walk through it. But that doesn't mean you have to do it by yourself. You discover it in yourself, you discover it for yourself, but you don't have to discover it by yourself. You can have individuals like I had, people who were giving me information, but I was like, whoa, I realize I'm not able to take this in yet. So I have to figure out how it fits for me. We want people to do that, but that doesn't mean that you can't take these little bits of wisdom and then integrate it inward and go, okay, how can I do this? What does this mean to me? What do these superpowers that I'm starting to invoke, how is that starting to uncover within me? But what you'll discover in the first chapter of the book is, while you're creating your own origin story, it's important to understand the origin story of your inner critic, right? Because your inner critic had an origin story too. And if you understand where it came into play for you, then you have a greater capacity to begin to silence it. And there are so many ways that inner critic starts to come into our world and come into being in our inner realm, right? When we think about that superhero comic book approach, there are all these different realms. If we want to go with Thor, the 9 realms, right? Who knows how many realms we have in there? But there are so many different layers, and The inner critic likes to get into each and every one of them. So you have everything from, you know, how our families get in and work together. And the inner critic can, even if you have the most loving, beautiful, supportive family, it does not mean that there aren't moments where you feel like you've disappointed them, maybe. And all it takes is that. And the inner critic will go, "Whoop, I'll take that." And the origin begins. Because that one moment of feeling like you disappointed somebody that you love is food for that inner critic to say, "Oh, you didn't disappoint them. You are a disappointment."
Mm.
And that script flipped. And now it went from, "Oh, my action created a moment of disappointment for that person," to, "I am a disappointment."